Welcome back to another episode of The Tim Macy Show. And today I'm here with a pretty special relationship that I have, and that's with our CEO at Real, Tamir Poleg. Tamir, it's great to see you.
Special relationship sounded a little bit vague, I have to say.
Oh, I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
we're we're like
I just
family.
we're like family. Yeah, that's what I meant. And what's funny is when we started, I got here at about 1,000 agents in 2020, and you had been working for so long. And then we caught this fire like attraction where we just grew from 1,000 to over 12,000 agents today. And we got close because we've gone through so much stuff together and everything else. But the story that I like to tell is when Brad and I were running around the country and we had these different events everywhere. And we had this 4-day weekend in between the events. And 4-day weekends are tough because you could go home, but you know how it is. Like leaving home is the hardest part. And so we didn't want to have to do that twice. And so we were trying to figure out what we could do with this 4-day weekend. And we could go here, we go there. And then we kind of say, hey, what if we went to Israel? Went to see Tamir and got
Best
to like,
decision ever.
right? I got to interview you in your country and your beautiful country and do all that. So we did like a week before or something. We called you or text you and said, hey, we just booked flights. We'll be out there Saturday. Are you going to be home? We just took off and went out. And my favorite thing is we shot a bunch of video. We kept it secret. We didn't tell anybody. So we popped up over there and they're like, what the heck? Brad and Tim are in Israel. And my favorite thing was when I got back and we went to these events and people would come up to me and they would say, man, that was so cool. They invited you to Israel.
Oh my God. Uh, Everyone's invited. Everyone. Like this was the highlight of my year. Whenever someone visits me in Israel, I mean, that's a
But
huge, huge thing for me.
it was just funny. I'm like, he didn't invite us. We just told him we were
Yeah,
coming. We
yeah, I
just,
mean, you invited yourselves, but
yeah,
um, it was fun. I had a
it
lot of
was fun.
fun.
It was
Yeah.
fun. It was fun. And so, yeah, I love the relationship we have. It's been great. It's been great working with you. And it's been great being part of this organization that you're leading and the way you lead it. I think a lot of agents, they have to look at where the best place for them is. And I think so many times they look at the splits, they look at the fees, they look at the logo, like all these things. And they rarely really look at the leadership. And is this an organization that I want to be a part of that's being led by people that I align with? And honestly, like we had a couple calls and I felt like we were aligned, but I didn't think about it that much. But being at our event this past year and looking at our leadership, I'm like, man, life is a lot better when I'm part of an organization that I feel aligned with the leadership. And this isn't like a real pitch. It probably definitely sounds like a real pitch, but I just
Yeah.
think whenever you're in an organization where you identify with leadership, it's amazing. So, Tamir, let's get started. Like, how did this thing start?
You mean real, I guess.
Yeah, how did you
But
get here? Because we won the Inman Innovator of the Year. You're a name. You are this big thing in the real estate industry now, which I know you
I don't
think
think
is,
I'm a big thing, but I mean, before you go further south, let me share the story. So I started my career as a construction worker, and I think that this is where the real estate, I don't know, virus kind of I got infected. But then I got a degree in economics and then joined a startup in the year 2000. Yes, I'm kind of getting older, but been with two different tech companies. And then in 2006, I went to Houston and started my own real estate company. So when I sold that company in 2013, I had some real estate background, I had technology background, and I wanted to converge the two. And obviously, I worked with a lot of agents throughout my career prior to starting Real. And I was actually working as an agent in Israel before they actually needed licenses here in Israel. So I knew exactly what kind of value agents bring to consumers, to a transaction. And I think that when I was looking for an opportunity to do something in real estate with technology, one of the first things I looked at was, okay, what are agents missing, or how are they served, or what do brokerages provide agents, and is the current brokerage model, traditional brokerage model, sustainable? Is this a good business? Can it be improved? Can we deliver more value to agents? Can we cut costs? And the more I dove into it, I just understood that there's just a tremendous opportunity. And at that point in time, I decided that I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to making agents' lives better. And this is how Real was born. And I can tell you that I probably didn't know enough about the industry. Otherwise, maybe I wouldn't have done it. And definitely it was a learning curve. But I can also tell you that we thought that things will probably move faster and smoother, just because Real was a startup, a tech startup operating in the real estate brokerage world. And those two things are super tough. Creating a brokerage is difficult and running a startup is difficult. And it's been a journey, but here we are. At some point in time, I met Tim Macy and then everything started going our way. So, so grateful for you.
I'm gonna play that on repeat as yeah. No, one thing though, when we first met, we talked about kindness, which is a weird thing to talk about. And work hard, be kind is on all the shirts. It's probably our most well known of the core values. And, you know, some of the industry looks at that and just doesn't care or is kind of thrown off by it. And honestly, I think it's actually a small portion of the industry. I think we come off as an industry of competition, cutthroat salespeople, when in actuality, you start talking about kindness. I think most people identify with that. But what made you drive in that direction and keep driving in that direction?
So, first of all, I don't think that everyone should like us. I mean, obviously, we want everybody to like us or at least be friendly with us. But some of the things we stand for, people maybe they don't resonate with people. But there's a story behind the kindness. And when we started Real, we needed a law firm to help us get started and deal with all the paperwork and everything. And I had a friend who was a partner at a large law firm. Obviously, as business people, we like to negotiate. You like to negotiate. I like to negotiate. And he assigned one of his junior partners to help Real. And when the first invoice came in, I started negotiating. And I said, hey, we're friends. I want a 40% discount, 30%, just negotiating. And then he invited me to a meeting and he said, try to picture a world in which someone does a job and you feel great about the job that they did and you just pay them and give them a great feeling about what they've done for you. And try to picture a world where everybody behaves the same way. Like how much better the world could be. And for me, that was like a huge aha moment because as business people, we always like to get the best deal and we want to always pay less than the other person and we always want to negotiate. And at that point, he said, if I do it and you do it and then you impact another person to do the same, maybe we create some sort of a movement here where people are kinder to each other instead of being cutthroat business people. And that really like changed my entire perspective on business. And that was probably the first couple of weeks of Real. And I can tell you that, 10 years ago, I probably wasn't like that in business, but that person changed my life in many ways. So I think that kindness is a thing that people don't often discuss in business and don't lead with. But at the end of the day, businesses are built by people and people want to receive kindness. They want to be in an environment where kindness is present. And I just decided that this is going to be something that Real will lead with.
Well, I think that's why it's probably resonated so much because I think most of us look at it like, yeah, if we all just worked hard and were nice to each other, how much easier would our lives be? It's just
Yeah.
it's such a
And by
simple
the way,
thing.
the fact that you're kind doesn't mean that you're losing. Like sometimes people want to be right and want to be loud and want to be aggressive, and it doesn't make them better. You can still be kind and win.
I love that. So you said something. You said that that probably wasn't me 10 years ago. So tell me, like, what are see now I gotta laugh at you. So tell me, like, what are the biggest changes you've seen in yourself as you've gone from like because back in the day, Katie Day, shout out to Katie, one of the first real agents, joined and I think she answered an ad on Craigslist, joined the brokerage because it had low fees. And you had how many agents at that time? Probably like 500 or something.
Couple of hundreds, but I mean, did you ever ask yourself why is Katie Day reading ads on Craigslist? Isn't
Listen, it
that
was a
weird?
different time. It was a different time. But, like, how have you changed as a person from going from this kind of bootstrapping, company that you're trying to get off the ground to
Oh,
now being at a company that is literally, like, launching off and everything? What have the biggest personal changes for you been?
I'm not even sure I want to remember that person that I was, I don't know, 15 years ago, 11 years ago. I think that what changed in me is a lot of humility, thinking very, very long term. I think that what real taught me is thinking super long term. And when I say long term, is not 2 years, not 5 years. We're talking about 10 years, 20 years, that time of cycles. I'm much more forgiving, or searching the good in every person, and believing that there's a good side in each and every one of us. You just need to uncover it, and if you come with the right approach, then that side will present itself. And as a younger person, I didn't have it in me. It was like, okay, I want to win, and this is how I win. I think that I also value partnerships much more. I was pretty much kind of a solo pilot back then, believed in myself and my own capabilities. But now I understand that partnerships are so much more powerful. Just, real is one huge network of partnerships. So that's the proof. And also in my personal life, in my relationships with family, I think that I just value them more. I understand that at the end of the day, those are the closest people that you have and you have to take care of. So I don't know, some sort of a transformation, which, maybe that's what being or getting older is about.
Well, I love that because I think so many of us, we have our loved ones in our family, and a lot of us do have that as our why. And that's why we're working so hard. That's why we're doing the things. But I think we put that valuing relationships because to me, I can value the relationship, but if I am not investing time in that relationship, if I'm not investing in that relationship, do I actually value it or am I just saying that? And what I think is true is that sometimes we just bull forward thinking that, oh, I'll get to valuing the relationship later on. When I think as we get older, we realize, whoa, if I can't take care of myself and take care of my relationships now, I'm probably not going to be able to take care of them in the future.
Yeah, fully agree. And last week at Rise, Sharon said something that I think stuck with many of us. He said, "Be where your feet are." And I'm actually thinking about it every single day. Like every time one of my kids reaches out to me, or we're on the couch watching TV, or I'm just saying, okay, just be where your feet are. Don't look at the phone. Don't look distracted. Just be there. And that's a lesson that I learned from Sharon. But I think that this is something all of us should learn.
Well, I think we could take that too to talking about the market because I do know you've got the NAR thing that is lawsuit settled, and you've got interest rates going up. You've got Zillow bought Follow Up Boss, and like all of these things going on in agents' minds. You, being in Israel right now, probably have a lot more things going on in your
Yeah,
mind. But
yeah.
if you let those things weigh you down from where your feet are, right? Like what are we doing? And so I think that I know that I've missed a lot of great time with people that I love while I was with them. Like I was with them, but I wasn't really with them because I've let that stuff distract me.
And it's okay, we cannot be perfect. And sometimes, I mean, one rule that I made for myself many years ago is never to regret anything. Like if I took a decision, and it could be the smallest decisions, it could be, you know I'm now talking or watching something on my phone when I'm sitting with my family. That's a decision, but I decided not to regret, because I think regret eats you up from the inside. So you just need to kind of say, okay, this is what I chose to do and I'm okay with it. But I think we always need to try and be better.
Yeah. Yeah, so taking your past, not regretting it, but learning from it and moving forward.
Yeah,
I like it.
yeah,
So, look, the market is the market. We've got a lot of things going on in the US right now as far as, housing, interest rates, all the things. We've got conflict going on around the world. Like, what's going to happen?
yeah.
There's a
Tell me
big
about it.
question mark. Yeah, no kidding. So, like, what is your take on the future and how real estate agents should be looking at it?
Well, I lived through a couple of cycles. So I was part of the tech world in 2000, 2001, when the dot-com bubble bursted. I was a part of the real estate industry in 2007, 2008, 9, 10, when everything collapsed. So you know that the market is cyclical, and you know that right now interest rates are high, transaction volume is super low. It'll change. It's a matter of time. Probably in 6 months, we will start to see some significant change. And I know that a lot of agents are hurting. Like, we are trying our hardest to support our agents and help them go through that super tough time. But we also have to remember that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you have to focus again on long term. Like, if you think about your business as a business, you don't have to think about the next 6 months. You have to think about the next couple of years and what are you doing now that will help you excel when the market shifts. Having said that, I also think that there are opportunities to actually crush it in this type of market conditions. Like, look at Real as a company. Q2, the last quarter that we reported, we reported revenue growth of 65% year over year in probably the most challenging market conditions in 2 decades, whereas all of our peers announced declining revenue. So what I'm trying to say is that if Real is a reflection of agents, then agents can actually do better than everybody else, despite of the market conditions. Now, you refer to NAR and the lawsuits and everything. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What happened this week with that judgment of 1.78 billion against NAR and Keller Williams and Home Services of America, I mean, that's scary. By the way, the number wouldn't be 1.78, or it actually tripled to 5.4 automatically. I don't think that this is the final number. There's a judge that will need to actually make a decision, and obviously there will be appeals. As you know, we were not a named defendant. I don't think it's really appropriate for us to, or for me to comment on that specific case. I do think that those lawsuits will change real estate, or will change the commission structure. And we're already starting to see that. We're already starting to see MLSs eliminating the buyer compensation. And I think that a lot of agents, a lot of buyers agents will just have to have conversations that they're not used to having with their clients and say, hey, those are the services that I can do for you, and this is how much I charge. And agents are not used to doing that, and we will need to help them have those type of conversations. But that shouldn't be scary, because if you truly believe that you provide value to your clients, you shouldn't have a problem articulating that value and saying what that value is actually worth and how you price your services. So I think that the main thing that everybody should take out of all this is, how do you make sure that you continue to provide value? And if you continue to provide value, people will continue to want to pay for it.
And what I love about this, and this is the conversation we're having internally with all of our agents and things that we work with, is like, is look, if changes come, you are going to have to do more to show your value and add value to your product. Okay. Because so many times we think of ourselves as agents as a service. I open houses, I negotiate everything, but you also need to have a product, right? Like your product, which is like, what do people get when they work with you? And it can't just all be, I'm really nice, I know the market. It can't be it. So you have to work on your product. You have to really show your value. And we don't know how this is going to shake out. I think that's what, as far as our leadership's been doing, is waiting to see how this actually plays out.
Typically, crises or changes are also an opportunity. When the Sitzer Burnett verdict came out, I started receiving emails from our board, like, what does it mean? What does it mean for us? What are we doing? And I said, I just send them a long email with my thoughts. And at the end of it, I said, this could be a huge opportunity for us, for our agents. We just need to find what the opportunity is and how we can actually evolve. But I think that in 5 years, we will probably look back and say, okay, this was actually a positive thing. But maybe we're not seeing it right now, but it will be a positive thing.
Well, I think what happens is that, okay, so this thing happens. If you're an agent, you want to get in front of this thing, you start improving how you communicate your services. You start figuring out how you can add more to your services. You start figuring out how you can improve your product so you can make sure you stay in the game. And then if 3 years from now, this thing shakes out and nothing changes, guess what? You're still winning, right? Like there's no downside. We know that if this makes a big shift in the industry, there are going to be a lot of people that have a really tough time with it, and there are going to be a few people that really win. And if you just work on making sure you're in that category of people that really win, you'll win either way. You win if it changes, you win if it doesn't. And so, for us, it's just like, let's keep improving. Let's keep going.
Yeah, but we're humans and nobody likes change. You just have to understand that it's not in your control and you have to embrace change, and that's it. Just don't be afraid.
So one of the things that I really hit me while in my time at Real, because to be very transparent with the audience, I joined at 1,000 agents and went to, we're at 12,000 something. It was not all smooth sailing. There were some bumps in the road whenever you're
It wasn't.
scaling and growing a company that quickly. And so how do you approach conflict when you run into two problems? What do you think your conflict is approach is? I'm asking this selfishly because I've always admired the way you work through these things.
I'll probably need an example, but I'll tell you what's typically leading my decisions. It's the agent's perspective. One, like, how does it look from the agent's view? Is this good for the agents? Is this negative for them? So that's one. Second is always doing the right thing. Like we could have taken a lot of shortcuts, cutting corners and everything, but I don't believe in that. I believe in doing the right thing, even if it means that growth will be slower, or maybe it will impact profitability or things like that. And then the last point, I would say, think long term. So think about the agents, do the right thing, and think long term.
I love that. And I think right now is a time where a lot of people are almost forced to think short term because of the fact that business is drying up and like they they need to get their next deal. And so I see a lot of agents pulling back from great long-term business strategies just to focus on chasing the short term. And I definitely worry about that perspective.
And we can understand them, because when you're hurting and when you're not generating enough income to sustain or to provide for your family, obviously you need to think short term as well. But I think that if you think about wealth building and creating a sustainable business, then long term thinking has to be a part of it.
So one of the meetings I was in, which was really cool, was when we got to see this idea of real wallet. And one, I didn't really know what to think of it when I first saw it. I was kind of like, oh, it's kind of interesting. But the thing that I really liked about it was that I realized nobody else has thought of this in the real estate industry. And it reminded me that we have a lot of different perspective. And so, in my time at Real, the fact that like you were never a agent in the US, or, we've got Pratesh who doesn't have much like of a real estate background. And it's like when I was sitting in that room, I saw the power of people that are outside of the realtor bubble. And I think honestly, the biggest thing for me in the NAR lawsuit was reading the closing arguments and reading how the lawyers were almost condescending towards the jury, saying this is common sense. You like don't what and I'm like, these guys are stuck in the realtor bubble. They don't realize how the real world interacts and views things. And so I loved having your outside perspective to give us things that, I think the real estate industry wouldn't think of on their own. But agents get the same way. Like we get stuck in realtor bubble. What would you say to agents to make sure that they are actually connecting with the consumer, actually hearing their fears and their thoughts to make sure they're not getting wrapped up in realtor world?
When we started the company, I said that when we're hiring people into the company, I don't want anyone with real estate experience, just because I did not believe that people that are coming from within the industry can think outside of the box and think about things that are innovative and things that nobody has thought about. So the first couple of years, we did not hire anyone with real estate experience. Obviously, I understood later on that that's probably a mistake, because you need a balance. You need people that understand how real estate operates and understand agent language and know how to think like agents. But at the same time, you also need a critical mass of people that are coming from other industries and can bring innovative ideas. And I think that this is something that we have done very well in recent years, just maintaining that balance. But I also think, to your question about the agents are also consumers. They're also home buyers, home sellers. They went through that. They're getting a lot of feedback. Like every person in the country is essentially a potential client. So every type of feedback that you're getting from friends, family, people you talk to can help you. But I think that what's important for agents is that we have our industry jargon and the verbiage. we always have to remember that clients, consumers don't know what GCI means, what clear to close means, or like the thousand other terms that we use in our everyday. And
Yeah.
we have to get into their minds of, okay, I'm a person, we're a couple, and we're just looking for a home. By the way, I also think that if you get a bunch of agents in a room and you ask them, all of them serving buyers, for example, and ask them, what do your buyers want? What do your clients want? They will say, great service, immediate communication, low rates, blah, 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 sort of a lot of things. But the one single thing people actually want is a home. They don't want a closing, they don't want a loan, they don't want a title policy, they do not want all that crap. They just want a home. So when you talk to them, you have to keep that in mind, that all they want is for you to show them how they can buy a home or how they can actually own a home. And I think that we're just confusing them with a lot of verbiage that just creates an anxiety.
Well, and we're in it so much that we start to assume people know things. And
Yes.
like there's no clarity in the real estate transaction. The real estate transaction is muddy and dirty and it's like convoluted. And we're so used to it that a lot of times we lack empathy with our clients on just how convoluted it is. And then I hear agents complain about their clients. And look, don't get me wrong. Sometimes we work with some people that are more difficult than others. It happens. But like a lot of times it's the fact that we do a poor job of communicating and we do a poor job of bringing clarity to this process for them. And then they react in ways that we think are unreasonable, when in actuality, like if I don't have clarity around a situation, I may react unreasonably. And I think as an industry, we just kind of go back and forth with each other and we complain about the consumer and don't actually understand them.
But by the way, do you think that if you were a doctor, all of your patients were great? Or if you were a lawyer, you would just have great clients? Or if you were, I don't know, a CPA? Like, this is a part of business. Like, people are just different from each other. And
Yeah.
sometimes you have good chemistry with someone and sometimes you don't. But I think that as long as they trust you and they value what you're saying, they will respect you. And that respect will probably have an impact on how they treat you.
One of my favorite things just watching the trial, and I'm not, I like to stay pretty in the middle on things and try to keep a realistic perspective on situations. And so I'm following the trial. But one of the things that was funny, and you do not have to comment on this, but for me as an agent, what was entertaining was for the plaintiffs there, that lawyer did an amazing job. He connected with the jury in a way that obviously our side did not. But it was just ironic that he's settling this multi-billion-dollar lawsuit and pointing the angry finger at realtors for taking everybody's money while he goes and takes a third or 40% of the settlement. It's just an
Yeah.
ironic world. I don't know. Anyways, moving on. We should talk about you come from the investment space. So again, we don't have to just go into the real stuff around wealth building, but you invested in a lot of US real estate in 2012. What years were those?
It was 2008 to 2010, the main buying period.
We have a lot of agents that listen to the podcast. Like, what would your investing advice be? And let me put some context around it. We have a lot of agents that were crushing it for the last couple of years, and then they made a bunch of money, more money than they have, and maybe they weren't as smart with it as they hoped they would be. And now that things are getting tight, I'm actually seeing a lot of people saying, man, I should have invested more. I need to start investing. Like, what is some of your good investing advice, having as much experience in it as you do?
I think that that's a huge question. And by the way, I don't see myself as an investment wizard or expert. I mean, I've lost a lot of money too, so don't take my advice. I'm just kidding. I think that as agents, we have the advantage of understanding the local market better than anyone else, probably. And we understand real estate much better than most investors. So that's a huge competitive advantage. At the end of the day, historically, owning real estate is always a great investment. So It doesn't matter if you buy now when prices are high relatively to where they were, I don't know, 2 3 years ago, or you buy in 2 years from now. If you plan on keeping that real estate, it will be a good investment. I don't think that there was a period of in time in history where over a 10-year time frame, real estate was not a good investment. So I think that you should leverage your local knowledge. You should always think about cash flow. Cash flow is great. Like, think about now owning properties when your business is down, but you do have some income from those properties. That's great. Try not to leverage too much. So I've owned properties with 90% leverage. I own properties with 50% leverage. I own properties with 0% leverage. I can tell you that 0 to 50% is great. Like, if you can do that, that's great. You may buy at the beginning with 80 or 90% leverage, but try to deleverage all the time.
I know.
Go
So
ahead.
I don't know why. So, like, I don't know why agents ask me questions. I'm not a very, always intelligent individual. I like how we both, self-deprecate before we give advice. I'm on agents that they're like, hey, I got to start investing. I got to start investing. I got to start investing. And when I really dig into them, it's like, how much cash do you have? Like, how much cash do you have there for investing? And it's honestly like, it just seems like it's not enough. And I know that there's a lot of things online where it's like, oh, you could start investing with no money. You don't need that much money. Just get going. I'm of the opposite right now. I'm telling a lot of our people to hoard cash and save a lot of money and then wait for the absolute best deals, because I think, there are going to be some better deals coming. And I think sometimes people are just excited to invest in something. And so they just get into something that's not necessarily the best. And so that's my advice. Like, what would your take be on that?
I mean, it really depends what you're trying to accomplish. If it's wealth preservation, that's one thing. If you're trying to grow, that's another thing. I can tell you out of my own experience, I started my company, my previous company in Houston, with a $50,000 loan that I received from my ex-wife's father. Sorry, $100,000. And my first deal was actually going into a commercial building, an office space that was occupied. Half of it was occupied by Wells Fargo. They had about 6 years left on the lease. The owner was the builder of that property. He was asking, I think, 5.4 million. Obviously, I didn't have 5.4 million, but I kind of analyzed it and I said, okay, I think that this building is worth a little bit more. So I took the $100,000. I signed a contract with him. I put the 100,000 as earnest money, refundable. I mean, we had an option period of about 90 or 60 days, and within those 60 days, I went and found an investor who was willing to pay me $300,000 to get out of the contract. So I borrowed 100,000. I made 300,000 profit based on that, and then I bought a single family and then a fourplex, and then I started growing like that. So it really depends on how flexible you are with your mind, but I do believe, Tim, that you can actually make money in real estate without having money.
All right, I agree. I also agree. What I would say though is I think that you should work on your toolkit, right? Like learning more and more about stuff. I think the big part of that story is the fact that, you had that loan, and then you also were able to look at this deal and say, hey, he wants 5.4, and I think that's low. And that's the thing too, is I've talked people out of some deals and talked people into some deals. And what I find at is your ability to be a great investor a lot of times comes from your ability to analyze a deal, to be able to know that that thing is less than what it's worth, because we all know you make your money when you buy. So what do you recommend to people if they want to just get better at looking at deals and being an investor?
I would say just look at deals all day long and just analyze them. Just analyze. You will learn a lot. I think you learn a lot through owning properties and operating properties, because, on paper, everything looks great, but then in real life, things break, things change. There are a bunch of expenses that you didn't think about. So you just have to get your feet wet. And I think that in the theory world, you just have to analyze a lot of deals and maybe focus on a couple of markets in which you will know exactly like what things are selling for, what the average price per square feet, like just be an expert, and then analyze as much as possible.
I love that.
And by the way, talk to as many people as possible. Talk to as many agents as possible, because this is how you get deal flow. This is how you get interesting deals coming your way. If people know that you're active, you're a potential buyer, and you're engaging with them very frequently.
Yeah, I love that. I always tell people, like, the best deals tend not to hit your email. If you're on an email with a list and you're getting a deal, it probably went through a couple other people first and they didn't bite on it, and then it is going out to everybody. And it's funny you say that, because I love looking at them. Like, I was sitting next to our agent, Jonathan Silva, here at a conference, and he's like, "Oh, somebody just sent me a deal." Like, "Give me your phone. I want to look at it." Like, I just love looking at them. I love looking at, oh, how much per door are they getting this apartment complex for? Where is it? What are they saying the return's going to be? Like, and the more I look at them, like, I've looked at hundreds and hundreds of these things. Then when my buddy sends me one and I'm like, holy crap, this is a deal. And then I'm like, how much money can I possibly give him without bankrupting myself to get into this thing? Because this is an amazing deal. But like you said, you only know that after looking at a bunch of them, and then you only get that deal because you're networked and people send it to you before they send it
Right.
to everyone else.
Right.
All right, now on the real side, let's talk about this too. We announced a lot of things, and some people were excited about a lot of it. Some people were indifferent. And to the people that were indifferent, this is a piece to the puzzle. Because like you said, I know you, Tamir. I know you think long-term. And so when we look at Real Wallet, when we look at, the title JV, when we look at the products we're doing on mortgage, they're really exciting. But I do feel like they're small pieces to a bigger puzzle. Like, what would you say for an agent? Like, what's the overall vision for Real?
That's a big question. By the way, about the fact that some people were indifferent, it's very difficult to keep 12,000 people happy 100% of the time. So, sometimes you do things and some people will be indifferent
Yeah,
to them.
but I think that the credit card is cool, but I think some people are like, oh, well, I have a credit card, and so there's more to it that I think not everybody gets.
Yeah. So I'll a couple of things. The idea with the wallet is, and the wallet, we can divide it into the debit card and the credit card. Debit card, obviously, if you use your own debit card, I don't know what kind of benefits you get, but at Real, the intention is that the more you use the debit card and the credit card, that offsets fees. So at the end of the day, you can be an agent at Real and not pay fees, the brokerage fee or transaction fee, which I think is beneficial. I think that the credit card is extremely unique because the line of thinking behind it is that agents build assets on top of our platform. Your pending transactions are an asset, and your revenue share is an asset, and your title JV distributions are an asset, and the equity that you accumulated Real is an asset. But those assets are not translated into cash today necessarily. Sometimes they do, like revenue share is paid once a month. But think about the fact that if we trust revenue share to be paid every month, then why not provide you an access to a much bigger amount, because we are confident that that revenue share will continue to be paid for you. So how can we look at those assets and actually give you access to that cash that's currently locked in those assets now versus over time or in a couple of years from now? And that's the line of thinking behind it. And if you actually use that credit card, which is the same credit, or that's type of credit that's not available to you right now, and it's credit that's based on your business performance. It's not just, I don't know, American Express saying, hey, Tim, we know you for a couple of years. That's the credit that you can get from us. This is actual credit that's built into your business. But if you use it, again, you offset a lot of the costs of running your business on our platform. And I think that's very unique. And I also think that we are probably the only company in the space that can do that, just because of all of the back-end software that we have built. But I think that on a bigger picture, I think that we can create a financial ecosystem for the agents and the agents' clients that will just simplify access to credit or access to cash and just smooth out the entire transaction on one hand, if you're a home buyer or seller, and at the same time will support in a much better way agents' businesses. And I think that that's kind of the long-term goal here.
I love that. I think about as agents how much we bring to the transaction. Like, when someone goes through a life event, when they have a baby and it's time for them to move up, they don't call the title company. When something happens and they get divorced, like, they don't call their lender. They always call their agent. And the agent brings so much of the value to the transaction, yet they only get one piece of it. And I think about it like, yeah, I'm swiping my card all the time, sometimes for good stuff, sometimes for dumb stuff. I'm doing things for the title company, for the lenders that we work with all the time. And as all these things happen and real estate commissions get compressed, like, everybody else is still winning and agents are the ones getting hurt. And so us as a company with this mission of, hey, like, how many more things in your business can we take and make a better deal for you? How many things in the real estate agent's business can we get them ownership of so they can have a more strong financial future than just commission to commission to commission?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's a win-win. It's a way for the company to monetize without the agents giving up anything. Think about everything that's happening in the industry. There could be a situation in which brokerages will not be able to charge agents what they're charging now. So let's say half of the brokerage revenue is reduced just because of market conditions or some restrictions by regulators. Brokerages will have to find a way to monetize their businesses in a new way without increasing fees to the agents. And I think that this is one of the ways that our business is sustainable.
Or it will be with increasing fees, which is even more interesting. And then we're talking about the NAR, the DOJ, all that other fun stuff. You still have the Zillow monster creeping in the shadows, not even in the shadows. And so there's just a lot of things coming at real estate agents. And so, again, it's just hard to get you on here and make this thing not sound like a real pitch. My non-real pitch is this: analyze your business and make sure you're building some good protective foundation around it as a lot of change comes over the next couple of years.
Yeah, but also don't be afraid. I mean,
Yeah.
your business, you as an agent, your business is not going anywhere. And as I said at the beginning, the fundamental thing is just making sure that you provide value to your clients. And if you do, then people will pay for it.
And I do love that. When I say build the foundation, build the protection, really focus on this stuff, you can't do it out of fear. You have to do it in attack mode. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing some agents go on the defensive, some agents cutting back on what they're doing, some agents looking for other options, and other agents are going all in. And we know that when times get hard, the ones that go all in win. And so, all right, you've got real estate agents listening to the podcast. You got a lot of things going on. What's one thing you'd want to leave people with?
I don't think it's real estate related, to be honest. I think that we're living in a very challenging time, both in the business world or real estate world, and everything that's happening in the world, in humanity. The fact that people are just getting more and more extremist. So I think that one thing that I want people to stay with is just think about kindness and think about how others feel and try to do the right thing. Because what I learned throughout the years is that if you do the right thing, eventually it pays off. Even though it may seem that you're losing something in the short term or someone else is winning, ego doesn't matter. If you do the right thing, then you stay with a great feeling and eventually it pays off as well. So just try to be kind and do the right thing.
Tamir, I really appreciate you jumping on. I know watching your leadership through what you guys have going on in your home right now and just seeing how steadfast you are is an inspiration to all of us. And listen, I'm not poking fun. I know most of the time we're just giving each other a hard time. There are a lot of people that are sincerely grateful for your leadership. So I appreciate your time. And yeah, I'll probably bug you to come back because I love having you on.
Thanks for having me. And one thing that we did not discuss is the fact that, Reel has been around for almost 10 years, but really we have taken off in the past 3 years. And I think that you had a huge, huge part of making it happen. So I think that many of us owe a lot to you, and that includes myself. So I'm just grateful for you.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. feels good. I got all warm and fuzzy. It's amazing. So, all right, everybody. I don't know
Okay.
who we got on next episode, but if you're binging the Tim Macy show, listen to the next one. It'll be good. See you later.